This is Hank for the Wildflower Bee Farm. I wanted to throw this out to all the Australian beekeepers out there that have followed and been so kind, and all of you dealing with what you're dealing with the varroa mites. And I've only been at this technically for 5 years, and I don't know very much, and probably never will. But I'll just share a little bit of what I learned. And just remember, I'm a trained psychologist, retired, who takes all that stuff and applies it to human behavior, and I'm also an investment guy. So I have a look at what's happening, and I've been watching on Instagram and reading the papers about what's happening in Australia. What's frustrating is you're kind of going through the same things I think most people who care about bees did in North America, industrialized countries. Everybody has varroa mites. And the question comes up, what do you do about it? It seems we've missed in government, and people doing regulations are pushed here and there, and you have livestock beekeeping, huge industrial beekeepers, and then you have folks like us who are what we call servant beekeepers, and other beekeepers who have a hive or two, or maybe it's a small business and they rely on it for their living, but they take care of it themselves. So single proprietary kind of beekeepers where you do all the work yourself, all the way up to the industrial ones. We know that there are three prime examples. Well, first of all, let's look at, I'm going to put this up on my audio part of my podcast, Wildflower Bee Farm. So if you're, you're sick of this or it's too much for Instagram, just go listen to that if you'd like. And I probably should do that anyway, because I don't think this format is for this. But I'll give you the three items. The first is you need to check out the Darwinian black box technique. Just Google that and it'll give you some information and a great history of bees adapting to varroa mites. The second is there's been some science come out of Cuba. Forget Cuba politics and all that. When they had mites, they couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't get any of the treatments. So they went solo. They didn't have any treatment at all. And try to figure out how these folks in this country, beekeepers, because we're all beekeepers. It doesn't matter if it's Russia, China, Cuba, United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. We're all in this together when it comes to bees. Thankfully, bees sort of cross all political lines. But read about Cuba and ask the experts there, the experts. And I've got a PhD, and frankly, there are more idiots with PhDs than there anywhere else on the planet. But ask them how they would explain Cuba. The Cuba experience, how they didn't do any treatments, they didn't, kick down walls and kill hives of owners, and how that all of a sudden ended up becoming a good thing. So you've got the bee box, the Darwinian black box, you've got what happened in Cuba, and the other one is, I believe it's called Bee Weaver in Texas. There was a family that owned a livestock beekeeping operation. The brothers split, and one went off to treatment free, now has apparently over 1,000 hives and never treats his bees for varroa mites. And I always ask myself, how's that possible if it's going to kill all their bees if we don't treat them with pesticides? I should also say, from my personal experience, remember, I've only been at it for 5 years, and we are thankfully, I discovered, well, unfortunately, I discovered the Darwinian black box technique after I failed my first 2-year attempt here, basically, because I was trying to do things without using some proven techniques that have been proven to help with this. But I was using, and have used in the past, all the treatments you've probably heard about. I tried to focus on what were called organic treatments of high concentration, so formic acid, thymol, and then a product came out based on hops, the hops they use in beer, which I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. Maybe this will help my bees too. But I killed more queens with that. I think I killed 3 queens when I used the hops concentration, because the liquid dripped down and actually smothered or smelled up some. It's highly, the smell just wipes you out. So anything of high concentration. So I don't do that anymore. We've been two years now. We're going into our 3rd year with some of our bees without treatment. And I know we're going to lose a lot this year. This is a year, I'll just give you the personal background. We have, going into the winter, probably with 45 hives. If we come out with 20 or 15, I'll do cartwheels. I can't do a cartwheel, but I'm going to try, because that will be incredible. The basic theory behind what we do is we use a lot of if it's been proven to help bees, we try to do it. So, for example, Seeley determined that if you separate your hives by space, you get less drift, which means if one hive has a high concentration of mites or other disease, they're not going to do a lot of drift and move into your other hive. We do wool blankets, and we're also very much into what has been proven. And I can read science, and I kind of understand it, and there's a lot of BS in it, which I understand, so don't fall for that. So I'll cut short. This was sort of a special thing. I just want to tell you, our thoughts are with you, but please, let's try not tell. If you can tell your government people not to engage in the mistakes that all the other countries on the planet have done, because right now what's happening in North America, as you know, probably, we're starting to experience super mites. And the most amazing book, I've told you about some articles that I continue to work on, is Charles Darwin's 1859 Origin of Species. Regardless of what you think about it, regardless of your religious affiliation, there are aspects of that book that if some of our government people read, I think they would start to understand why most of the things that they are doing are not going to help. And if they hear that evidence, for example, what I talk about with Cuba, with bee weaver, with the Darwinian black box technique, if they ignore all that, then they're idiots. Because in the end, what you're doing is you're pausing what's going to happen, which is you'll have super mites. Regardless of what you do, you're going to have significant loss, but you'll be spending more money. You'll be doing harm. I believe we do harm when we use a lot of the stuff that's out there. It's just my opinion, okay? So it's just my opinion. I just want you to know our thoughts are with you, Australian folks. Never been to Australia, but sounds like an amazing place. If there's anything we can do, you can reach out at Wildflower Bee Farm, and I'll email you. I don't know very much. I think probably after 5 years, maybe 2%. What you have to know about bees, I might know. So if you flip a coin, that means I'm at 52%. So I'm probably 48% wrong on everything I've said in this podcast. But it is what it is. Thoughts are with you. Your bees are tough. That's the most amazing thing to remember. And the other thing is try to maintain your level of happiness through all of this. It's a very difficult thing because I don't think people understand that honeybees for us are very much like the family pet or the family dog or cat or something that's really close to the family. And I know my 50 hives. I walk them every day. I spend hours a day studying videos because we're a private research idea. Excuse me. So for me, they're like my family. And that's why this is so emotional. All the best. Talk soon.